What's the most ducked up thing you've overheard? We can't take mom off of life support. We need her social security check to pay the truck payment. Overheard in a hospital ICU waiting room. To a toddler at the store. Stop crying or I'll lock you in the closet again. Grandpa has just 2 more days, guys. Are you guys excited for the payout when he dies? What are you gonna get first? It was when I visited the retirement home, and the room right next to my grandpa's there was rich old man. My neighbor at my college dorm was on the phone with his girlfriend and said, "You ducking some guy with my baby up in there?" In a homeless shelter. Between sobs, you do this every time I get pregnant. You still got that container of cum for the candles. I was an aisle away at a Walmart. My mom overheard a nanny telling other nannies on a park that she used to put a diaper on top of a stove until it heated, and then put it on a toddler's face to help them sleep. That suffocates toddlers, so they pass out. So my mom followed the nanny to the house, waited a while, and rang the bell. The house owner received her. My mom told her the story and the woman broke crying, as she had lost a son previously for sudden death syndrome. They had the same nanny. A mom and her young teenage son on the bus talking about where they were going to go when the bank came to take their house. A man at my university said he really hoped I didn't have miscarriage because he was counting on me not coming back after having the baby so my tenured spot would open up. Chitlins ain't good unless they got a little bit of shit in 'em. I was 16 and had no idea what chitlins were, but I promised myself I would never eat them. So far, success. I have one. I was sitting in a cafe one day with a friend and the table next to us 3 middle-aged ladies were talking about a party they had been to when I and my friend overheard. Then she picked up the cake, rubbed it over her PSSY, and said, "Come and get it boys, my friend," and I made eye contact. I was trying so hard not to laugh, and she just looked downright disturbed. My mother telling someone that she'd just talked to my father a couple days after I'd been in a serious car wreck. I was unconscious for 2 days. She was telling her friend that he hadn't called, so she called him with an update. She had asked him why he didn't call. He said, "You didn't call." So I figured she wasn't dead. I was at a water park and overheard a couple fighting because the woman was insinuating that the man was into his own daughter sexually. The daughter was visiting her dad for the first time in years. She had her own kid with her too. The guy told the woman she was reflecting her own insecurities onto him. Don't know how that situation ended up. Hopefully they got that sorted out one way or another. Mildly ducked up and funny. I don't even want to think what crossed his mind when he saw me in the doorway with my socks in my ears. I was sharing a taxi with a total stranger, then I heard the driver talking on the phone softly, telling the person that he has the passports and the hashish and that he has 2 young women in the back seat. The other passenger and I yelled at him and caused a scene in order to scare him and get out of the car. It was a nightmare. Man and wife have older relatives, grandpa and grandma. Grandpa dies and they move grandma into their house and proceeded to make their own will, to which she leaves everything to them instead of dividing it between the family she had it originally planned. Granny was losing her faculties and was pretty happy to go along with it since she had family to live with in her golden years. Also, they hid this new will that they can bring out when she finally dies. I found out my 15-year-old brother stuck his in my Nutella. It's not as bad as the other comments on here, but when I was younger, around 12 or so, I overheard my family casually talking about how I'm never going to get married and how nobody will ever want to date or marry me. The fact that it was a casual conversation that they thought I was not there for is what really made it horrible. Happened when I was about 16, 17 years old. For context, I'm the eldest of 3. My parent was on the phone to someone in their bedroom, explaining how many children they had. I was in the hall about to knock on the door to ask something. I heard my eldest is 13 and my other kid is 7. Laughs, how old are yours? Well, a lot of ducked up shit happened, but to straight up ignore my existence when describing how many children they had kind of sucked. Started as Overheard. I like to go to cafes, sit in the social area, and then start up conversations. With one person I overheard, she was a local teacher, and started up a conversation with her. She was pretty obvious about being glad for the company, but her mind was on something else. Turned out that something else was it was both the anniversary of her husband's suicide, after he'd hidden losing his job for months, and her eldest son's suicide, who'd had a bad breakup a few years prior. She was worried about her younger son as he'd seemed depressed lately and hadn't been able to find a job for half a year, but had said he wanted to be alone that day. I'm bipolar and understand severe depressive swings, but I cannot understand constantly being afraid any bad turn in life will kill your last family member. I was in a McDonald's in Luton and someone on the next table said it wasn't until the baby was born that they realized they were brother and sister. Is the blue part on a map the sky or the water? Why wouldn't I eat it? It's my cum. Heard outside a bar. So this wasn't exactly ducked up, not cool with kink shaming, but it is the one thing I have ever overheard that has ever stuck with me. Years ago I was in a local adult store browsing the goods when this man walked in. I overheard this booming voice asking the cashier if his package had came in yet. This guy was like 6'2", jacked as shit, big ol' white beard like Santa Claus, sleeveless camo print Alabama football shirt, with roughed up jeans and work boots. The cashier asked what his package was, to which he replied it was a 14-inch stainless steel, but plug with a jewel on the end of it, ma'am. And oh boy, the mental images. Just said to myself, you do you, my guy. Later I went on to work part-time at a Spencer's and was talking to my manager about that experience one night, and as he used to be the manager of that particular store, he actually knew the guy I was talking about. He said, oh, that's Greg. He's super ducking nice. Wife is deathly ill and has a pretty rough silicone allergy, so he special orders anything she wants from that place. Nice couple. Really? One time in science class I heard a kid, 15 by the way, say that he sells pics of himself dressed as a woman to a 60-year-old man. I worked the front desk at a residence hall at my university. She was a freshman. A wheelchair-bound girl greeted her parents in the lobby by my desk. They held normal conversation for a few minutes. Eventually, the girl said to her mom, "I'm doing so well. You're totally wrong. I'm not completely worthless." Broke my heart, and I remember it years later. He probably killed himself because he had to live with you. This from my loving mother after my husband committed suicide, leaving me to raise an autistic kindergartner and preschooler alone. Calmly hung up the phone and haven't spoken to her since. It's been 11 years. Drunk girls. One struggling to insert a tampon. The other steps in to help. I was pretty wasted at the time too, to be honest. Didn't trust my ears at first. In the bathroom of my high school in a wealthy suburb, I overheard a pair of girls in the 10th grade laughing about giving head to a stranger who bought them alcohol. When I was washing my hands, I couldn't help but warn them about how dangerous and illegal that was, and how creepy an adult man would need to be to go along with that. The one girl asked me what she was supposed to do then, and I suggested getting a fake ID, and she haughtily replied, "That's fraud. It's way worse." I still think about that exchange all the time. If you weren't so ducking fat, maybe I wouldn't be sleeping with other women. Ex-coworker was on the phone in the back room, and I was doing inventory. She was talking to a friend on speakerphone while doing dishes about her kids. They were getting taken away because she was abusing them, neglecting them, dropping them off at daycare without proper clothing such as shoes and jackets during the winter. She would also leave them at home at night while they were sleeping to go hook up with guys. She said she didn't ducking care if they took them away, and that she could just pop out more just as fast as they were gone. I had paused just to listen. She ended up having papers sentenced to her a couple weeks later while at work and stopped showing up. Almost a year later, she showed up pregnant wearing her uniform expecting to pick up a shift and got turned down. A conversation at a lunch table at work. P1 Humans were never made to eat animals. Even animals don't eat other animals. It's unnatural. Me but cats eat birds. P1. With the condescending face and tone of explaining something very obvious to someone very stupid. What? Birds aren't animals. This woman was in her 30s. I wonder where she thought chicken came from all those years. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,